We hope that you choose to stick around. My name's Sean. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Pro Wrestling Journey podcast. This is episode 6, and in today's journey, I'm going to be giving you my thoughts on WrestleMania 37 Night 2. I'm going to also try and answer a few of your questions because we've got some of those. Some of them are pretty good ones, so I'm going to try and see if I can get them fitted in today. You may have noticed I said I and not we. That's because my co-host, JP, otherwise known as the man that's bound from Poundland, the Ric Flair of the scumbags, the guy that's been hit with that many lefts he could never be right. He's not with me today, and John wasn't able to make today's show due to his work. John's job requires him to be able to travel around the UK if and when required. So we're hoping to see him back next week. He pretends he's a big wig and he's an important guy. He's not really. But we'll get him halfway this time. Hope to see you next week, John boy. We'll get your thoughts on Night 2. Anyway, I'm just going to dive straight into it. WrestleMania Night 2 kicked off with Hulk Hogan and Titus O'Neil dressed as pirates. They were looking absolutely ridiculous in a hilarious way. I did notice though a lot more in Night 2 that when Titus spoke the fans cheered, and when Hogan spoke they were booing. So a wee bit uncomfortable considering Hogan's past, which was covered about 5-6 years ago. So I ain't going to need to do that here. That is old news and that's not what I'm going to bring up. So these guys are professionals, and Hogan, he was probably aware that he was going to get booed. But you've just got to keep marching on the show as they go on. And WWE never had the luxury of the Thunderdome where they piped the reactions that they want in. Moving on, the opening match was The Fiend versus Randy Orton. Randy comes out wearing white, which I can't remember ever seeing him in. He does get booed by the fans. He did get the heel reaction that you'd want. And there was no giant sperm following him to the ring like there was last time he faced Bray Wyatt at Mania, so I'm sure he was chuffed with that. I did say, going into this match, the Fiend has to win, or that character's just dead in my eyes, because in story, he was murdered by Randy Orton. Murdered, I'm telling you. That was back in December, TLC. He was literally set on fire, and nobody, by the way, tried to actually help this guy. They just let him burn to a pile of ashes in the ring, which is starting to make me think WWE is really a bit of an unsafe working environment, is it? Because 10 years ago, we had that unsafe working environment storyline, and you thought, man up, boys. How are you going to tell me to man up when the guy's getting set on fire, head to toe, burning to a pile of ashes? And you'd mean to tell me that $1 billion company can't afford a few fire extinguishers? Vinnie Mac, where's your priorities, man? Because to me, it must just be counting your money, or maybe eating a few steaks and hitting the gym. We'll move on anyway for my rant for Vince McMahon. That'll be another episode, I'm sure. Love you, Vince. Love Vinnie Mac. He gets a lot of stick, but you gotta love him. He is a genius. When Randy is in the ring, we get a nice wee cinematic segment where the Fiend, he transforms from the Swamp Fiend to the nice, freshly shaved, ready to hit the town Fiend. He had a nice wee he had a nice new mask. The smile looked even bigger. The hair was shining. And it just looked like he was ready to paint the town red. And funny how I say that there, because we've seen the return of the infamous red light. You know, the red light that absolutely nobody's complimented and said that's actually enhancing my experience. I've only ever heard people saying the red light is a problem. We can barely see what's going on in the ring. And I remember Hell in a Cell 2019, The Fiend versus Seth Rollins. The cell was red. Dark lighting was red. You could barely see a single thing what was going on. And that to me, if it's not going to actually, I like the idea and I like the concept of the lighting, but if we can't see what's going on, does it really make it better? Maybe. So Alexa Bliss, she makes her way to the ring, and there's a huge Jack in the Box at ringside, and she makes the most out of her time with the crowd. I'm going to give Alexa a solid A plus for effort because she's playing such a wacky character. And regardless of whether or not you like her character, you can't actually deny that Bliss isn't giving everything she can to play the part. You can't say she's gone through the motions because she's putting her absolute all into the character and she's playing it to a T. Me personally, I'm not into the supernatural characters. The only two I would give away would be Undertaker and Kane, because they were the best to do it. Absolute best to do it. You're not going to get better than them two. So it's all downhill for there, if you ask me. But Bray Wyatt and Alexa Bliss, they put their absolute all into a character like that. It's a character I wouldn't be comfortable trying to play. So credit to you guys. Big props for that. The Fiend looked good when he came out of the Jack in the Box, and he took his time. And I did hear his wee tribute to Brody Lee. He did what Brody used to do in the ring. He used to do the shout. You did the shouting. Yeah. I did like that. It's a nice wee nod to Luke Harper, Brody Lee. You notice I'm saying he jumped off the box and not box-like structure like bloody Michael Cole was calling it. Ah, man. When I heard that with my ear-like anatomy, I wanted to just kick my TV-like screen completely off my... It was just... What is he playing at? We give Cole a lot of stick, I think. And when he's giving it calls like this, he deserves it, man. And I personally actually really like Michael Cole just because I grew up on... I was started in the late 90s, so he's always been there since I've watched it. The ruthless aggression era, him and Taz, so that was my favorite days when it came to SmackDown. I think that's a lot of people's favorite days. The ruthless aggression era. That was some of the best stuff that you'll see when it comes to SmackDown, undeniably. But we're not here to talk about SmackDown. We're here to talk about WrestleMania Night 2, The Fiend and Randy Orton. So I'm going to stop getting on a tangent and I'm going to try and get back to the subject. There wasn't much of a match here. Orton dropped the Fiend on the announce table and Fiend just no sells. Gets back up, applies a mandible claw. Orton gets out, runs back in the ring. Fiend's chasing him down and gets caught with a draping DDT. Fiend pops back up, no sells it again. Orton's hitting him with another DDT. This time, kept the Fiend down for a few seconds. He attempts an RKO. That gets countered into a mandible claw. The Fiend then gets Randy set up for Sister Abigail. And just when he's about to hit that, he gets distracted by fire blasting through the ring post. Exactly like Kane's old fire. So I was expecting Kane to come out. I wasn't expecting Alexa Bliss on the Jack in the Box. Congratulations, Kane, by the way, for the Hall of Fame induction. I don't think is anyone's more deserving than you. So congratulations. So, like I just said, Alexa Bliss was the one to cause the distraction. She's on the Jack in the Box. The box-like structure, you might call it. And there's black stuff running all down her face. Orton hits the Fiend with an RKO for the win, and the crowd absolutely hates it. Randy Orton just legs it out of there, and the Fiend's staring at Alexa. The lights go out, and they disappear, and the crowd's booing heavily. This is the way you're going to open up night 2. Compared to night 1, this was terrible. Night 1, I wasn't happy with the result that my man Drew didn't get his title. But you can't tell me that wasn't a brilliant way to kick off the show. That night 1 match was off the charts. and you weren't going to get much more high energy than Drew versus Bobby. So night 2 going to the Fiend and Orton. Nah, doesn't compare in my eyes. Sorry, lads. And I've heard people clutching at straws, saying that black stuff that was running down her face, they're trying to say that was the Fiend blood running down her face and he lost his powers and that's why he stole the RKO and lost. And that's just not up my alley at all. Like, I'm sorry. I'm not sure where we go from here, but the Fiend and Alexa Bliss, they certainly have their fans. So I hope they enjoyed this at least, because it wasn't up my alley, like I said. If you're gonna, I think you should have came up with a high energy match. And this wasn't. This was just, they were relying on outside shenanigans and distractions, and just not my cup of tea. We'll just get off it now, will we? Nia Jax and Shayna Baszler versus Natalya and Tamina. This was the next match, and this was for the Women's Tag Team Championship. So Tamina and Natalya, they were getting a decent crowd reaction. They had a win at night 1's WrestleMania, which was absolutely brilliant in the tag team turmoil. I personally didn't enjoy the match, but I think it's great for Tamina and Natalya to be getting on both nights of WrestleMania, pulling double duty. So absolutely loved that, and much respect to the ladies for doing that. Nia Jax called out Tamina, saying, "I want you." So the two powerhouses kicking the match off. Tamina got a decent crowd reaction on this show, which I thought was really nice because she's a veteran and she never really gets any props. She's never really been rewarded. She's been there for over 10 years, I think. So, and I don't remember her ever having a title. So I think Tamina, she doesn't get the props she's deserving. So I'm hoping this is going to be a start of a nice wee run for her. So I got the Tamina and Natalya. She gave a double back body drop on Nia, and it looked to me like Natalya wasn't expecting the forearm coming her way from Jax before the hit move. Looked to be like a wee bit of a miscommunication, because Natalya comes into the ring and Jax just straight away is hitting her with the forearm. And then a few seconds later, they're like, right, let's get this double body drop, double back body drop. So if you ask me, it looked like it was a wee bit of a miscommunication. And I could just be clutching at straws there, I don't know. There was a horrible spot in this match that absolutely killed it for me, but I'll get to that in just a wee second. So we've got Tamina, Natalya were struggling for a wee bit. Tamina got wiped out by Nia Jax on the floor outside at one point, and that left Natty alone. Baszler was torturing Natty in the ring. Nia Jax power bombs her, and Tamina then dives in to make the save eventually. Getting to that horrible spot in the match that killed it for me. Nia was on the ropes, and the baby faces are just stood there while Nia's taking her sweet time. And Tamina and Natalya are both stood in the middle of the ring waiting on her, and it just looked ridiculous. I'm thinking, you're standing there waiting for what exactly? You're waiting for Nia Jax to jump and take you out. Would you not just get out of the way? Would you not try and move? I don't think they knew the camera was on them like that, but even so, it doesn't matter. I wouldn't have said it mattered if the camera's on you or not, because there's a crowd. Do they want to be seeing that? If I was there, that would have took me out of the match as well, if I never seen it on TV. So it wasn't great, but what can we do? These things happen, I suppose. Nia was talking trash to Tamina. Tamina tried getting a WrestleMania Hogan and Andre moment. I don't think this is something that they'll be showing weekly on WWE's show intro for the next 30 years, but she certainly did try. And Nia Jax, she really is King Kong, like what she was saying, because she was not getting up. Tamina goes to hit Nia Jax with the Superfly Splash, but Nia gets out of the way. Natalya gets a sharpshooter on Nia, but that was cut off by the Queen of Spades, Shayna Baszler, who was the legal person. I guess Natalya must not have been aware of this. Baszler locks in Fura Lock and they retain the tag team titles. The match was fine, other than the embarrassing spot. That wasn't the best, but what can you do? You got to move on, I suppose. The first two matches here, they had their place on the card, I suppose. But if you ask me, the next match that we're going to cover, this should have been where you kicked it off. This should have been the first match, because this is where it gets good. It really starts getting good here. So we've got Kevin Owens versus Sami Zayn. And this is, like I just said, should have been the opening match. This is where the energy is at. These guys, you know the history, 15 plus years. Sami Zayn's Kevin Owens' son's godfather. You don't get much closer than that. These guys are best friends. And you just know they've always wanted to have a match one-on-one at WrestleMania. So the fact that they've got that, that's something that they'll never forget. And you just, fair play to both guys. They've worked their tails off for so long and it's paid off undoubtedly. But the match was a killer match. It had Logan Paul. I know who Logan Paul is. I don't really follow him though, to be honest. He's not my kind of a guy that I'm gonna go out and keep an eye and see what he's doing. He's not really that interesting to me. I don't mean that bad, Logan. Anyway, the one thing I did hate about this match was the camera cutting back to Logan Paul sitting watching the match that we're trying to watch. I mean, come on, that did annoy me. Not gonna lie, because you're supposed to keep the focus on the ring, what's happening in it, the guys that are performing at WrestleMania. But what happens? We're getting cuts to Logan Paul watching the match. Can we not get to see what he's watching? Because that would be brilliant. Oh, I tell you. So Kevin Owens, he did hit a big fisherman buster off the top rope. That looked absolutely brutal, and I loved it. That was one of the highlights of the match for me. He was bringing it as he always does for WrestleMania. KO, undoubtedly, every single WrestleMania he'll come up with something. So I will just say this. So when Sami Zayn, I thought the conspiracy was going to come to an end on this show. But no, the conspiracy just keeps rolling. He's going to end up speaking to little Jimmy before the end of the year. He's heading down the R-Truth road, if you ask me. So, Sami, somebody needs to kick some sense into you, and who better than Kevin Owens, which is exactly what he did. He hits Sami with a Stone Cold Stunner, and that was all she wrote. Logan got into the ring, tried to congratulate Owens, trying to celebrate with him. Sami Zayn was absolutely livid at this because he was saying, "You're my guest of honor, Logan. What the hell are you doing?" But no, Sami was not happy with the way things went down. Although I think we ended up happy with how it ended up for Logan because Mr. Paul got a nice stunner of his own by Kevin. You don't trust KO, and for the love of God, when it comes to a stunner, whoever delivers that stunner, you never trust them because that move is one of the all-time, in fact, it probably is. It is the all-time great move. It can be hit at any time. It can be hit on anybody. What more do you need? And it's effective. You got to lock that jaw into the shoulder. Biff. Stunned. And that's exactly what happened to Logan. So, well done to KO for that. And Logan, it was great to see you. But I do need to say, you're no Bad Bunny. Matt Riddle versus Sheamus. Now, this match was for Riddle's United States Championship. And this is what we predicted. Me and John had predicted this was going to be a hard-hitting match. And exactly that's what it was. So it's a great match. Did have one botch. Sheamus was on the second rope trying to hit Riddle with white noise. He had to readjust and he looked annoyed with himself when he did. It's WrestleMania. You can just tell he was beating himself up. But you got to give Sheamus credit here because he changed it on the fly. He dropped the big knee off the top rope. He didn't just try and repeat the same spot, which he missed. And so many guys do that these days. They'll miss something and then they'll go and try and do it again. And it's like, well, we know what you're trying to do. We know it's coming. You didn't work for you the first time, so why is it going to work for you the second time? And most of the time when stuff like that happens, the other guy who's selling it needs to wait even longer. And you can just oversells. Makes everyone look daft, I think. So Sheamus readjusted, so well done to the big man because he knows Sheamus is a veteran. He doesn't play about. He knows what it's all about. If he can't do something right the first time, he's going to find something else to beat you up with. And that's exactly what he done. Sheamus is old school as hell. So Riddle, by the way, me and John, you probably know this. Me and John, we're not a big fan of Riddle's character. We actually really appreciate Riddle in the ring, and we really like what he can bring. John's a big fan of Riddle's UFC work, and I'm going to be honest, I never knew his UFC work until he came to WWE, and then I've seen a couple of his MMA stuff, and the boy can go, he really can. But when he was giving it the whole bro nuts and bro this, and which is cool. It's fine. You want to go with the bro thing, that's fine. But does he need to be as silly as he is? Because he comes across as stupid. I'm sorry, like, but he does. He just comes across as stupid at times. And I don't think you need to be doing that. The guy has a legit MMA background. A couple of years ago, he was saying that he's going to be the guy to retire Brock Lesnar. And when you looked at his NXT career, you thought to yourself, this could be the guy to retire Brock Lesnar. But as a lot of these NXT guys, they go onto the main roster and they just completely fall apart. And I don't know why that is. It must be down to the fact that they're under different management. NXT being run by Triple H and Vince McMahon running the main roster side of things. I think there's somewhere between NXT and the main roster, there's a disconnect from Vince's end and Triple H's end. They've got two different ways of doing things. So here you get Triple H's side. Normally when it starts in NXT, so you see his product first, and you think this is what these people can be. This is what they can become. And then there's a disconnect when they get to the main roster, and you think, why is he acting like this? Are they trying to make him look stupid? And sometimes you have to ask, are they actually trying to make him look stupid? And I know that's his personality. He's a chilled out, relaxed kind of guy, and so was RVD. And RVD was, at times, he was quite a funny guy and chilled out on his promos as well. But he wasn't an absolute gong. Anyway, sorry about that, Riddle. We do, like I said, we appreciate your work, but yeah, you need to be a bit more serious, I think. Definitely need to be a bit more serious. Um, so there was a big bro kick from Sheamus. It looked rough as hell. Literally in midair, doing a backflip off the middle rope out of nowhere. Sheamus just kicks him right in the face. And Riddle had a burst lip. And you got to give credit to both guys, especially Riddle, for taking that beautiful bro kick, because knowing that's coming, that can't be enjoyable knowing I'm going to do a backflip and gravity's not going to do me any favours whatsoever. Sheamus has to lay it in. He has to boot me right in the chin. And that's exactly what happened. So Matt Riddle took it like an absolute champ. And with that, we've got a new champ, and that would be Sheamus. Sheamus won the United States Championship for, I believe it's a third time. I could be wrong. I think it's a 3-time United States champion now. So congratulations to the big man. We did think this was going to happen. Not sure if it got covered on the last prediction show, but we did think Sheamus, with his work, if you look at Sheamus's return, if you look at his work in the last year, you've had Sheamus and Jeff Hardy, you've had Sheamus and Big E, and you've had Sheamus and Drew McIntyre. And in every single one of them feuds, Sheamus has brought the other guy up. Big E, when he needed it, Big E was needing, people were saying Big E needs to be a bit more serious. He needs to stop being so goofy. He needs to stop being the New Day version of Big E. Sheamus helped Big E get to the point where it was like, no, he doesn't need to stop being goofy. He doesn't need to stop being the New Day's Big E. Big E is a funny guy. That's just the way he is. When it's time to get serious, he'll get serious. And that's like Big E saying, you want me to get, if you get Big E to the point where he needs to be serious, then you better get yourself prepared for an absolute train wreck coming your way. Same with Jeff Hardy. He enhanced that feud, gave a real good story with Jeff Hardy back in, I think that was back in the summer. Back in the summer of last year. And then his stuff with Drew has been absolutely brilliant. Top tier stuff. My only regret with that is that they didn't go with Sheamus versus Drew for WrestleMania for the title, because they had a story there which I think could have went that way. Possibly a little bit too predictable though, because we all knew it was going that way. So that's probably why they changed it up. But Bobby Lashley, I'm never going to complain. Bobby Lashley being in the championship picture, because he is just an absolute beast and a legit MMA background as well. So just when I was speaking about Big E, we'll get into the Big E versus Apollo Crews match. And this match was a Nigerian drum fight, which was a hard-hitting match. And we said going into this pay-per-view that this match needed to have a stipulation. The rivalry has gone beyond trying to just pin your opponent. It's gotten far too personal for that. And we were right, because they did have that Nigerian drum fight, which we were wondering, what's that? What's a Nigerian drum fight, you ask? Well, I'll tell you what it is. Turns out it's just an average no DQ match, basically. Big E, he got the superstar treatment. He got a live performance. Wilde performed his entrance theme, and when Big E was making his way to the ring. WWE doesn't just do that for everyone, and this shows what the company thinks of Big E. And I support this 1,000%, because I don't think we've even scratched the surface with what Big E is going to bring to the singles division. And I'm excited going forward to see what's in store for the Big E. For the big man. The match starts with both men trading shots with candlesticks. and the announcers were selling the fact that each shot sounded like a drum going off. Big E hits a spear through the rope, sending Apollo Crews to the outside, and I always cringe at that move. I've seen Big E hit it perfectly, and I've seen it go wrong, and I always worry for his safety and his opponent. But doing it at WrestleMania, it's go big or go home. So, like I said with Drew, with the big dive, if you're going to do it, now's the time to do it. Mania, buckle up. That move, would normally be the highlight of the match, but he later went on to hit Crews with a Uranage off the apron, and it was on the steel steps. That landing was horrible. There was an absolute thud, and much respect to Crews for taking that, right? Because that could not have been nice at all. Crews did get himself back into the match with a barrage of candlestick shots. He had Big E laying on the table in the middle of the ring, and he tried ending it there. He tried to close in on his first IC championship with the big splash off the top rope. Big E moved out of the way just in the nick of time, and Big E picked up Apollo for a big ending. This is when you think, oh, he's got the win. And just before he could get the win, Dabba-Kato interfered and helped Apollo pick up the win. The only thing I liked about the ending to this match was the Samoan Spike Dabba-Kato used on Big E. That's a move I've not seen in years, and it was obviously made famous by the Samoan Bulldozer Umaga. The announcers are trying to sell that they don't know who this man is, which is clearly a lot of garbage, because a lot of other fans and myself know. This guy's been in Raw Underground. He had a problem with Kevin Owens. He was literally drafted to Raw in October, and he's never made an appearance. But he was, like I said, he was in Raw Underground with Shane McMahon. He's now going by the name Commander Assis. This is a man who clearly doesn't have an identity in WWE. He's had 3 name changes in WWE, and he hasn't even debuted in a match yet. He was Babatunde, he was Yabba Dabba Kato, and now he's Commander Assis. What's next? We'll find out, I suppose. Hopefully, they've got him with Apollo. They're going all in on the character. That's what I like about this. Apollo's getting a bodyguard. That is a good thing for Apollo. So we'll see how it goes. And as far as Big E, he'll work his way through the ranks. And I'm certain that he's going to get a match with Roman Reigns sometime in the next 12 months. You heard it here. He is going to get a match with Roman Reigns for that Universal Championship sometime in the next 12 months. So we should move on. Congratulations to Apollo, by the way. We will move on to Asuka versus Rhea Ripley. Now, the backstory of this match, well, there wasn't one really, was there? Rhea Ripley debuted on Raw. She asked for a title shot. She gets it at Mania. That aside, the match was brilliant. Both ladies shined. They looked like absolute stars. So you can't really complain. Despite being one of the most decorated stars of WWE's women's division, Asuka's never actually won any of her WrestleMania matches. Her undefeated streak ended at WrestleMania 34 against Charlotte Flair. She was also defeated in the Women's Battle Royal at WrestleMania 35. And she lost the tag team championships, the women's tag titles in the opening match last year. So she's actually, the question in this match was, would the streak continue? So Asuka started strong, but Ripley soon took over, which Ripley tried to trap the champion in a ripcord kick. Asuka broke free and applied her own submission. Ripley fought out of that, hit a German suplex for a near fall, which looked brilliant, by the way. Asuka earned her own near fall by rocking the challenger with a kick, followed by a hip attack. The Nightmare tried to fight back, but the Empress grounded her with a DDT and a running knee for another 2 count. Asuka then unloaded on Ripley with a series of kicks before the challenger caught her and dropped her on the mat. They both traded submission holds. Asuka came out on top, and the Empress trapped Ripley in the Asuka lock started kicking her. Ripley caught Asuka's legs, dropped her with the riptide, and got the win. So the question for would the streak continue for Asuka never winning at WrestleMania? The question is yes, the streak continued. This was an excellent match, and this was giving Ripley the redemption that she needed from last year with Charlotte Flair. She went one-on-one at WrestleMania 36, lost the NXT Women's Championship. She also actually challenged Charlotte she was the champion, and she called out Charlotte, who was the Royal Rumble winner that year. So she needed the redemption for last year, and she got it. I do hope this is the beginning of this feud and not the end, because I'm always happy with Asuka being in the championship picture. She is championship material, and both women, they've got a better story to tell. I think this has to be the start. It only started 2 or 3 weeks ago, so there's no way this is a story that's going to end anytime soon. Asuka needs to come back and have a couple of matches, I think. But they put on an absolute classic, so congratulations, both women. Absolutely 5 stars for me. And I don't normally do the whole ranking. I'm no Dave Meltzer, so my stars can be thrown out a wee bit more willy-nilly. I'll give you 5 stars, ladies, because that was an absolute classic. And we shall move on, and we're going on to the main event of the whole weekend, and that was the triple threat match between Edge, Daniel Bryan, and the Universal Champion himself, the Tribal Chief, Roman Reigns. This match absolutely delivered for me. This match deserved to close out the weekend because it was the main attraction. Hands down, there was plenty of action in this match, and nobody held back. All 3 guys put on an absolute brilliant match. Jey Uso got involved just about every match Roman's been in, so it shouldn't have been a surprise that this was the case here too. You just knew that Uso was going to get himself involved in this one, and that he did. Edge really got the best reaction from the crowd, and deservedly so. 10 years to the day he had to retire. The story, you just couldn't write it, so I can't imagine what must have been going through his mind. He must have the nerves, everything. You can just imagine his whole career flashing before his eyes before this match. It was just an incredible story that Edge has had, and he's continuing on with his career. He's going to end it in his terms, and I'm 100% certain Edge is going to come back from this. He didn't. If you ask me, Edge doesn't need a championship. He doesn't need anything. He doesn't need a prop. He's a legend. He is an absolute veteran. Edge needs to work with who he wants to work with, because that's just, he's earned it, if you ask me. He should go out on a high when he's ready to go out, and he should work with whoever he wants to work with, because, like I said, absolute legend. He's earned it. Daniel Bryan looked great as well in this match. He was on fire. And at one point, he was stomping Edge in the head multiple times while screaming, "You got a bad neck, he?" Roman, he got the heel reaction you want for a heel. There was a bit of a question there about would Roman get cheered by the fans when they're back in their arena. Well, if this crowd is anything to go by, they certainly booed him, and he got the heel reaction that I'm sure Vince was wanting. For so long, people were begging that he turned heel. So when he did, you start to wonder, are they going to start liking him now? But no, if it's, like I said, if it's anything to go by with this crowd, the answer to that is no. There was one point in the match where Roman is strapped in two different holds at the same time. Both Bryan and Edge were just having a way with Reigns, and that was a cool wee part of the match. Absolutely loved that. Again, we were talking about facial expressions in the last episode, and Roman, his face, he looked like he was in absolute agony. He looked like he did not know what to do. He was in a real bad situation, and he didn't want to tap, and he had no choice but to just go through it and suck it up, which he did. As soon as the bell rang, Roman Reigns unloaded on both Edge and Daniel Bryan, with some help from Jey Uso. However, Edge soon took Uso out of the equation by hitting him with an execution on the steel steps. That took Jey Uso out for a good bit. Edge and Daniel Bryan then collided in the ring with the rated R superstar delivering a sunset flip for a near fall. Reigns soon got back inside the ring and helped Edge in taking down Bryan before the two turned their attention to each other. After some back and forth, Edge took Reigns down before Daniel Bryan entered to break the pin. Bryan tried to attack Edge with a running knee, but Edge caught him with a spear. Edge then obliterated both men with a chair and delivered the concerto to Daniel Bryan. It looked like Edge was going to become the champ, and he was looking a little bit crazy at this point. But that was the point he had to get to become the rated R superstar. That was the story going in. So he was going to do anything necessary to get the championship that he feels he never lost. So, you can see where he had to draw that inspiration and do stuff that he probably wouldn't want to do to poor Daniel Bryan. But he did. He hit Daniel Bryan with a concerto, and Jey Uso reappeared, attacked Edge from behind. Edge tried to fight back, but Reigns blasted him with a spear, and then he delivered the concerto of his own to Edge. Reigns then dragged Edge on top of Daniel Bryan and pinned both stars to retain the title. He said he was going to stack them both, and I never thought he literally meant he was going to do it. But there you go, he did. This match, to me, this was the match of the weekend, in my opinion, and it deserved to go on last. That was a great way to end the show. And if you look ahead to next year's WrestleMania, for the build-up for the next year, there is a good few feuds going forward for Roman Reigns, possibly anyway. He could be feuding with the likes of Cesaro. He could Big E, Drew McIntyre, and possibly even Jimmy Uso or Jey Uso. There's only so much that Jay's going to take of this doing Roman's dirty work. So, could be for a while. He's going to end up getting sick of it at some point. We'll see how it goes. But it'll certainly be interesting to find out where everyone's going to go from the fallout of WrestleMania. And I look forward to covering it for you as it happens. Moving on from WrestleMania Night 2, we've got an email from Duncan over here in Scotland. Thanks for the support, Duncan. Much appreciated. You can email us your questions anytime, by the way. Email us your questions at theprowrestlingjourney.co.uk. That's questions@theprowrestlingjourney.co.uk. Duncan has said here, "Hi lads, loving the show. I had a question about the NXT UK Championship. As I'm writing this, Walter has held the NXT UK Championship for over 740 days. Who do you think on the NXT UK roster could defeat Walter for the championship?" That's a good question, Duncan. That is. I think, first of all, Walter could hold on to that championship for another year or so. I mean, he could hold on to it for another year and a half. I don't think Walter needs to drop the NXT UK Championship anytime soon. If anyone is going to end that historic reign? My answer would be Drew McIntyre. Because Drew, to me, he is the representation of British wrestling. I've heard Drew say himself that eventually he would love to be a part of the NXT UK roster. So when he's ready to do that, I think the big man should be the guy to beat Walter for the championship, in my opinion. Because you know those guys, they're not going to hold back. They're going to beat the crap out of each other, and they're going to do it for the sake of that championship. And Walter has made that championship pretty damn prestigious. It is the longest reign in WWE since, it's got to be the 80s, right? Drew McIntyre, if you ask me, he's the man that should beat Walter for the NXT UK Championship. And that doesn't need to be in the next 6 weeks. That could be a year and a half down the line. Walter, he does not need to be dropping that anytime soon, in my opinion. But let me know what your opinion is, guys. If you've got a better answer than me, or you think I'm way off the mark, or you agree with me, email us and let us know what you think, or comment down below who you think should beat Walter. We've got a question sent in from Ryan down in Newcastle. He asks, who from the British independent scene do you think should be signed to NXT UK? Oh, that's another brilliant question. I'm loving the NXT UK questions, guys. I'm glad that you are tuning into the product. I shall get my... So let me have a wee think who we could get from the independent scene here in the UK. I think there's a lot of people, there is a lot of guys and girls on the British independent scene that should be, and I believe one day will be, signed to NXT UK. However, there is one man that comes to mind that's been putting in far too much work not to be acknowledged, and that is Andy Wilde. You may have seen him in ICW, for those that don't really know the British independent wrestlers too well. He is one of the best independent pro wrestlers in the world, in my eyes. Andy is also the head coach over at FPWA, 5 Pro Wrestling Asylum, and he works tirelessly to help teach his students gain as much knowledge as possible. I've seen what he's done through the pandemic. The pandemic hasn't stopped him at all. It's made him adapt. He's had to, like a lot of people, he's had to adapt and find new ways to teach his students. But he's done that. He's spent a lot of time over this pandemic teaching his students, and it's not stopped him. So you've got to respect that. He's kept going. He's kept pushing forward. He's got goals in his mind, and he's pushing towards them goals. Now, I don't know if Andy actually wants to be a part of NXT UK or if he's wanting to get signed by WWE. But I also think if the offer came, why would you turn it down? I don't think he would. I think he would step up to the mark and he would absolutely deliver. He to me, he fits in perfectly with NXT UK. Watching him in the ring, you can tell that he's influenced by some of the greats that represented the British scene in past years before him. Likes Fit Finlay, William Regal. Andy's a big guy and he's got a tank load of energy. He's a perfect fit, like I said. I'm certain we will see him at some point in NXT UK if he chooses that that's what he wants to do. And if he does do that, there's absolutely no reason why he shouldn't be challenging for the UK Championship. However, that is us for today. We've reached the destination for this leg of the journey, folks. Please, if you haven't already, subscribe to our new YouTube channel, The Pro Wrestling Journey. You can follow us on Twitter at @thepro_WJ. And again, email us your questions, comments, critiques to questions@theprowrestlingjourney.co.uk. Thank you all for tuning in. Take it easy. Stay safe, guys. And I will see you all for episode 7 next Sunday.